All right, congratulations on completing level number 5, 10, and 1 is 11. And just like a great athlete, you've arrived, with the final stage, and one final victory lap is around the corner. So I'm proud to say that I'm so grateful that you've stuck this far with this. I'm so grateful that you've really trusted me and yourself and our community. And I'm so grateful that you're here in level 12, because this is the pinnacle of this first, bit of time together, where you're really equipping yourself with the mindset, the skill set, and the action set to once and for all win the game of money. And so I'm going to ask you to do a little bit something different today. And that is, I want to encourage you to stop right now, as soon as I'm done talking, of course, and I want you to go into the community, the NeuroGym Achievers community, and I want you to just share, a few things that this journey, has brought up for you. The good, the challenging, the excitement, the ups and the downs. And I want you to encourage other people in our community to follow your lead, because not everybody finishes what they start. And you, obviously, are the type of person who finishes what he or she starts. So post a few of your key learnings of your entire journey and share some of your progress and success in the community, because they need encouragement. Remember in level 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and all the feelings and emotions and thoughts you had? Well, some were great, some were challenging. Help somebody who needs you right now. Okay, send them a little message of encouragement and hope. And so take that moment right now, pause the video, and then get into the community and give them a little bit of encouragement, and then come back, all right? And what I would like you to do is really focus now on what it is that is going to really take this over the top, because I want you to finish strong together with me. And this week's skills and knowledge video, I'm going to be interviewing my buddy Brian Tracy. We're going to be discussing how to achieve predictable success, and it's awesome. So pay attention to what Brian and I did, and then when you're done with that, we'll start with the audios for this week. All right, so get in the community, give them a little encouragement there, and then come back and watch a training with Brian, and then we'll come back and or you'll start your audio training in just a few moments. Hey friends, this is John Asraf, and I've got an amazing interview for you with one of the legends of the personal and professional development world, Mr. Brian Tracy. So Brian, welcome.
Thank you, John.
And it's so great to be here. Now, we're in the studio right now, and we're going to talk about what does it really take to become and have success in your life. And so I've got the first question for you is, what does it really take for people to become successful in their lives, and why do some people achieve more success than others?
Well, it's interesting when you ask that question, because in my reading, I came across the fact that every change in your life begins when your mind collides with a new idea. Other than that, you just go on like inertia forever. You get into a comfort zone. The new idea for me was when I finally took to heart that old saying that you only use 10% of your potential. Well, according to the research, it's actually closer to 2%. So in other words, if it was 10, it means that whatever you're earning today, you're probably capable of earning 10 times as much if you would just use more of your existing potential. You don't have to be a different person. You just have to use more of what you already have. It's almost like you have oil under the ground in your land. You just have to get out more of the oil. And that was a shocker to me. And so I began asking the question, why is it that some people are more successful than others? Why is it that some people are earning 5 and 10 times as much as others? One of the
That's a great question, by the way. Why are some people earning 5 or 10 times more than others?
Yeah, and I often say to my friends, I say, there's nothing will make you madder than to see somebody who's dumber than you is making more money than you. And how could this be? And so you go and look at what they do. And another shocker for me was when I discovered what is called the iron law of the universe, the law of cause and effect, is that everything happens for a reason. Everybody starts off poor, like you and I started off poor. We started off, the joke is we started off so far behind we thought we were first. So we started off poor. We didn't get good educations. We got in trouble with the law. I mean, we had every single problem, got fired from jobs and so on. And yet, We've done well, and if you go back and you trace it, you'll find that there were specific things that we did that enabled us to do it. So if you look at other successful people, you'll find that success is predictable, like the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. If you do what other successful people do by the law, it's not the principle or the theory or the hope of cause and effect, it's called the law. A law is everywhere and always true.
So you believe that if you follow a blueprint, you can achieve the same results?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to be a doctor, what do? You go to medical school. The person goes into medical school, does not even know how to spell most of the terminology. When he or she comes out, they are a qualified physician and capable of rendering medical care, sometimes at a very high level. What do? They just learned how to do it. Accountants, lawyers, architects, engineers, millionaires, multimillionaires, corporate industrialists, people who go from rags to riches, they just do certain things in a certain way. Each of them has their own variations. They do certain things in a certain way. Another thing I learned, again, from one of my teachers, he said, Brian, he said, all the answers have been found. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. All you have to do is find people who've already achieved what you want to achieve and find out what they did and do the same thing, and you'll get the same results. That's so staggering, because most people spend their whole life doing random things.
Trying to figure it out.
Just trying to figure it out. And so what you and I have done is we've shown people, it's almost like, I sometimes say it's like a recipe in the kitchen.
Sure.
And here's it's a good analogy too, because if I say to my audience, does anybody here have a dish that they like to prepare at home? They say, yeah. I say, well, let me tell you what happened. You either went to a restaurant or to a friend's house and you ate the dish and you said, I really like that dish. I'd like to be able to make it at home so I can have it whenever I want. Okay? Just imagine the analogy. You watch it, see a person who's got a big house on the hill with a beautiful car and a bank account full of money. You'd say, I'd really like to have that dish at my home. So what's the first thing you ask for? People say,
recipe.
The recipe? Yes. This is so obvious. Do you know that 80–90% of the population is trying to figure out the dish without a recipe? So then you take the recipe and you go home and you look at all the ingredients and you go out and you buy the ingredients and you put them all together and you mix it up. But how does it taste the first time? And the answer is not the way you remember. So you say, what do you say? Oh, I'm no good. I have no self-esteem. I'm not smart. You beat yourself. No, you say it's just a recipe. It's an objective thing. Obviously, I didn't mix it right. So what I'll do is I'll just go back and I'll fool around with the ingredients. And I'll put a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. Second time you make it, tastes a little better. Third time you make it, tastes a little. You may have to make it 5 or 10 times, but when you finally have done it, you've mastered it. Once you've mastered it, you can walk into your kitchen or any kitchen for the rest of your life and whip up that dish and taste beautiful. That's the same thing with serial entrepreneurs. People who start multiple businesses like yourself and myself. Is once you have the basic principles, you just do it over and over again. But what's the problem? Is people mix it once, it doesn't taste very good, they quit, go back to what they were doing, never make any progress. They don't realize that in order to succeed, you've got to fail over and over again and just learn from every failure.
And what I also found as well is that you can learn from your own failures, and that's one way, but better yet, why not learn from other people's failures? I mean, I've made a fairly successful life for myself by starting with the recipe, as you suggested, and then add my ideas, my creativity. And so I don't like to spend any time on figuring out the recipe.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind adding to the recipe. When we talk about successful, I totally agree with you, and you said something that really sparked my interest is that for whether it's health, wealth, relationships, career, business, whatever it is, people have already figured it out.
Yes.
So if we just start off with what they've already learned and learn from their mistakes, learn from their successes, that as a starting point, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I'm interested in asking you is, you've been around the world many, many times over. You've worked with billion-dollar corporations, with billionaires, multimillionaires, highly successful people, people who aren't as successful. How do you define success? Like, what is success?
Well, it's a great question, because I started getting confronted with that. I'd say, who wants to be a big success? People say, well, how do you define success? Like, are you imposing your definition on me? And so what I did is I said, well, success is several things. First of all, it's meaning and purpose in life. Aristotle said that. It's meaning and purpose. You have very clear goals to which you're committed. And as you work on them, they make you happy. And when you achieve them, you're happier still. And the number one reason for failure is no goals.
Really?
Yeah, it's people have no idea what they're doing. They have no clear goal. Like when you started off to form $1 billion Remax Corporation, well, you had a very clear goal. You had no idea how you're going to achieve the goal. But the very fact that you had the goal started to attract ideas and resources and people that help the goal become possible. Without the goal, it's almost like a rallying point. It's a rallying point for all the ideas of the universe. Is when you set a goal, you drive a mental stake in the ground. This is my goal. Oh, you'll never achieve it. How are you going to achieve it? No, don't worry about the how, but just be clear about the what. So that's one of the things that we teach all the time, the importance of clear, written, specific goal. The second thing that you want is great levels of health and energy. You want to live as long as you can. And there's no area where cause and effect is more applicable. About 85 or 90% of all our ailments are psychological.
Stress, psychological.
Yeah. You know what the most powerful medicine in the world is? I just read an article on this based on years of research. It's called the placebo.
It's more potent.
Because the placebo is what you think the medicine contains is more powerful than the medicine itself. So most of our problems are psychological. The third thing you want is happy relationships. And 85% of your happiness and success will be determined by the fact that you are involved with people who love and care about you and you love and care about them. And I learned something really interesting.
I love this stuff, by the way. I'm so excited.
There's no joy in things. There is no joy in things. You can buy a $15,000 Rolex watch and put it on your wrist, and you'll have pleasure opening the box and pleasure putting it on your wrist and pleasure looking at it. And then you turn on the TV and watch the news and you forget the watch ever existed. So you can have a Rolls Royce, you can have the biggest house. There's no joy in things. The joy is always in relationships. Because all your joy or lack of joy comes from your relationships. Now the fourth area is you want to be able to manage it. Well, let's say I'm just trying to think of what they are. You want to achieve financial independence. And that's really important. We have to have enough money so that we don't worry about money. And that has to be a central focal point of every person's existence. They have to be thinking, what do I need to do? Everybody wants to be a millionaire. I've studied more of the research on millionaires than most people. And you find that millionaires have a particular way of thinking, several ways, but one is they're always thinking in terms of financial independence. They're always thinking in terms of long term, of getting to the point where they have enough money, where they never worry about money. And most people think about money in terms of what I can spend it on right away.
You know, I heard a saying many years ago, it says, wealthy people have big libraries, poor people have big TVs.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And the difference is always between long-term thinking and short-term thinking. There's 50 years of research at Harvard that shows that the most successful people think longer term than unsuccessful people. And they did a great book on strategy in the 90s called Competing for the Future. And what they said is that successful individuals and organizations have what they call future intent. And this was the core of the book. This became a real buzz term. Future intent meant they had a long future intent, where they intended to be in the future, and the skills they would have to develop today, because they say it takes 3 to 5 years to develop an essential skill if you need it in your business to master the future. So you better get on with it. You have to
3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
See, and I find, sorry for interrupting you, but most people want a quick fix. They want a fast food thinking, fast food, fast everything.
Yes.
And 3 to 5 years is like, are you kidding me? That seems like so long.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've seen this experience. I was just talking to a friend on a particular business deal, and he was reminding me that we were working together 23 years ago. And the people he represents, I've been working with for 16 years. And the people most responsible for my audio program sales, I had a relationship that goes back 25 years. And you start to think, when you first met these people, it never occurred to you that these relationships have gone for decades,
right,
but they are the most important relationships in your world. And so successful people think long term.
Would you say that's one of the most, one of the highest qualities of the successful people that you've met, is they think long term versus, you know, right now, right this second?
Yes. And let me look at a doctor. A doctor goes through 10, 12, 15 years of research, 10 to 15 years paying off the debts in order to reach a point where he or she can make a wonderful living and provide well for their family. That is the ultimate in long-term thinking. And you know, in every study, they say, who is the most respected person or profession in America? It's doctors. Why? It's because people know how long they have prepared to be ready to be able to help us when we have need of them. And there's something in this human psyche that respects people who have invested so long to get to where they are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do lawyers fit in the same category?
Well,
Do you hear that response? We have some great lawyers out there. I know that. Lots of great lawyers.
yeah. Now here's the final epiphany for me was when I learned that the core of the human personality, the core of human thinking, is your self-esteem. It's they call it the emotional core, or the reactor core, like of a nuclear reactor. This reactor core, your level of self-esteem, is the critical determinant of everything that happens to you in life. It determines your energy levels, your personality, your vitality, your self-confidence, self-esteem, everything. So this self-esteem factor, and the best definition is how much you like yourself, how much you like and respect yourself. And I mentioned, I was just speaking to this gentleman who runs a billion-dollar company in New Jersey just before I came over here, and he was talking about that concept of liking yourself and how it changed his whole life. It's made him wealthy. He's practiced on all of his children. All of his children are winners. He practices it in management. And so we teach from the very beginning, we teach our people to say, I like myself. I like myself. I like myself.
Now, would you agree that you can like yourself, but when we talk about self-esteem, we could believe, for example, that I'm a really good leader at church, but not of my family.
Right.
Or I'm really smart at my business, but I'm not really smart here.
Yes.
So would you agree that when we talk about self-esteem, we could like ourselves, maybe even love ourselves, but still feel incompetent or inadequate in certain areas of our life, and that causes us to diminish our value or diminish our confidence or diminish our certainty?
Yeah. The key thing is that the self-esteem is the emotional core. Now you also have a self-image, which is how you see yourself and think about yourself. And you have a self-concept. And your self-concept is the totality of your beliefs about yourself and your potential in any area. And people have varieties of self-concepts. For instance, if you're a good swimmer, when you swim, your self-concept is very high. If you're a good golfer, you have a high self-concept. If you're not, then the whole idea of swimming, members of my family don't like to swim at all.
Right.
So their self-concept is low.
So I'm a great swimmer.
Yeah.
My family's all great swimmers, so I have a self-concept that
Yeah.
great swimmers.
Yeah, and so when you start to become better at something, your self-concept changes, your belief structure. Here's what I found is that people's beliefs, and this is what you are very excellent at teaching, is your beliefs determine your reality. You don't believe what you see what you already believe.
Right.
And the old saying, you will see it when you believe it. And that changing beliefs is a very different thing. It's something that requires repetition, almost like developing a skill, a golfing skill. You may have to take lessons for a long time, or with your process, you may take lessons for a very short time to change the belief system. Right. And one of the things that I teach is I say that imagine you could buy a piece of software, a belief software, from a software store and program it into your mental operating system so that it would run all of your systems. And you could choose the belief software you wanted. What would be the best belief for you to buy? Well, there's been years and years and years, more than 20 years of research on this, and here's what it is. It is the belief that I am destined to be a big success in life. Now, I've taught my kids that.
You are destined to be a big success in your life.
You're destined to be a big success in life. I've taught my kids that since they were kids. When they were little babies, they'd say, you're going to be a big success in life. You're going to be a big success in life. You're going to be a big success in life. Every one of my children has been programmed. They've been hypnotized in a positive way. Conditioned is the psychological term. So they absolutely believe that though they'll have ups and downs, they will be successes in life. The greatest gift that you can give your children is to tell them all the time, you're going to be a big success in life. Well, what about this? What about that? You fall on your face? Hey, everybody falls on their face, but you're going to be a big success in life.
And so when people are watching this interview and they say, okay, that makes sense, that's great, you know, I can understand this logically, but I'm not a big success right now.
Yes.
So they've got this little voice that's saying, sounds great, John, sounds great, Brian, you guys are, you know, are successful right now. And I can tell you that neither one of us came from, you know, silver spoon in our mouth and having success given to us on a silver platter. We both had to overcome the mental jargon, you know, that kept us back. So when somebody's watching this right now,
Right.
what do they do? What do they do to get out of that funk?
Well, first of all, in the turning point in life, you know what it is? It's so simple. It's make a decision. make a decision that your future is going to be different from your present or your past. And it's amazing, about 80-20, the bottom 80% of people go through life with wishes and hopes and fantasies and dreams, and I want to be rich and thin and popular, but they never make a decision that by gum they're going to do it.
What does making a decision mean? When you make a decision,
Yes.
or when somebody says to you, I made a decision, what does that mean to you?
Well, once you've made the decision, and by the way, just making the decision changes your self-concept. There's lots of research. It changes your self-image and it raises your self-esteem.
Sure.
If you say, for example, one of the things I teach is that you must be excellent at what you do. And it may take a long time, but you have to be good at what you do if you want to enjoy all the fruits and rewards of your field. There's no question. There are no mediocre successful people.
Competition's tough.
Okay. So you say, all right, I am going to be excellent. I'm going to be in the top 10% of my field. And just making that decision changes your whole self-image. You see yourself differently. You look at other people, and you actually look at other people and you kind of feel sorry for them because they're not that good. Even though you haven't done a single thing to enact your decision, you've made the decision. Then what you have to do is back the decision. And this we'll talk about, the sort of 7 things that,
Sure.
that you do that. Then you back it with action. If you decide you're going to lose weight, then by gum, you go and you throw away all the sweet things in your house and you get yourself a treadmill or you join a health club. In other words, you start to back it with the actions consistent with the decision. And that's really where the rubber meets the road.
And so make the decision,
Yes.
back it up with action. If we go back to where we started, don't try to figure it out because the recipe for any of a result already exists.
Yes.
And then do it.
Yeah.
Like Nike says, just go and do it one step at a time.
Just do it. Yeah.
Now, Brian just mentioned something just a couple of seconds ago about we're going to talk about the 7 Ps, and so I'm going to ask him to maybe you can look directly
All
at
right.
the audience and say, Brian's got this phenomenal process around the 7 Ps of success and around having the attitude. And so, what are those 7 Ps? And instead of talking to me, let's talk right to the audience so you can do that.
Well, here's an important point. Everything that you do in life affects your self-esteem. It either raises it or lowers it. So one of the great success principles is everything counts. Everything counts. Everything you eat or don't eat, everything you do or don't do, it counts. It adds up and accumulates. So what we found is that in building self-esteem, number one is you need positive purpose and direction. You need a very clear, exciting vision or goal of your future. Napoleon Hill said you've got to have a burning desire for a great future. And then you have to write it down, and you have to make a plan, and then you have to work on the plan every day. And it's so simple that people who have written goals and plans accomplish more than the other 97% put together. It's one of the things that you and I teach because people think, well, I already have goals. No, you don't. You have wishes. You have hopes, but you don't have any goals. And so you've got to have positive purpose and direction. And now there are companies that have 2- and 3-day programs. I was just talking to one of the biggest companies in America. They want me to come in and speak to their senior managers from the country on goal setting because they've come to the conclusion, surprise, surprise, that goal setting is absolutely fundamental to their future. And I said, really? I said, geez, I mean, I was setting goals 40 years ago, and they're just discovering it, and they're walking around like, wow, isn't this incredible? Goal setting. I say, well, this is the way that you have to set goals. Geez, we never thought of that before. Anyway.
That's so foreign to me to hear that because I've been setting goals for, I guess, 30 years now. So I'm 10 years behind you.
The top 3% of people who have written goals accomplish more than the other 97% put together. And I've worked with almost 5 million people now. And
Wow.
I have people all over the world will come back and say,
You guys, did you hear that? He's worked with over 5 million people. I hope you are taking copious notes because I know, I want to pay attention to you, but I want to pay more attention to him because this man's got so much wisdom in him. So sorry for interrupting you, but 5 million people. So you've seen trends. You've seen the ones who've said, okay, I'm taking what Brian's taught me, I'm applying it and succeeded, or I'm listening to what Brian's taught me, don't apply it, don't have the success.
I had 2 guys come up to me at a seminar recently, and I call these stand-up guys. They're guys like you. They're strong, they're positive, they're confident, in their, say, mid-30s. And they said, Mr. Tracy, could we speak to you for a second? I said, sure. They said, we just wanted to tell you about 12 years ago, we were working for a sales organization. We're the bottom guys in the company. We had never accomplished much, and we hung around together. We had no money. And one of your guys came in and sold and offered tickets to one of your public seminars. And we were the only 2 who bought. And we had to borrow the money. And we went to the seminar, and you talked about setting specific sales goals and making action plans for their achievement. And you encouraged us to continue to learn about selling. They hadn't taught us anything about selling. So we took your advice. We chipped in our money about one of your audio programs, and we listened to it back and forth. He said, within a year, we're the number 1 and 2 in that company. 2 years later, we decided to start our own business. We started our own business as representatives for the for the national company. He said, we brought 38 people to your seminar today. He said, we're both multimillionaires. We have beautiful homes. We're married, got beautiful kids, lovely cars. He said it transformed our lives, and they were really happy. And I was really happy for them. And then I asked them this question. I said, Brian, I said, tell me, Dwayne, I said, did you ever think what would have happened if you had not come to that seminar and made that decision and set those goals? Have you ever thought of what might have happened? And they look at each other like this. Like they said, Brian, we talk about that all the time. He said, the word we use is traumatic. They said the effect on our life would be traumatic. We still know guys that are still back in that sales office, and they're still living from paycheck to paycheck. And we're running our own multi-million-dollar business. He said, without learning this stuff, the difference in your life would be traumatic. It's probably the experience you've had as well.
Without question. So the first P was purpose.
Yes.
You've got to have the purpose.
Clear written goals. Number 2 is you have to have positive personal management skills, which means you have to manage your time really well and continually discipline yourself to focus on the most valuable things you can do. Most people waste most of their time. The bottom 80% of people barely get anything done in the course of a day. They hang out, they talk to their friends, they drink coffee, they play on the internet and so on, but the top 20% produce 5 times, 10 times as much as they do. People say, oh, that guy got promoted because he's got, it's politics, it's personality. No, it's called productivity, you idiot. He produces more. And why did they promote him and pay him more? Because they don't want him to go somewhere else. You know, here's a great line from Orson Swett Martin. He said, you promote yourself every time you take on a new responsibility. He said, you worried about promotion? Just take on a new responsibility, promote yourself.
I've always heard, you know, bosses don't pay you, companies don't pay you. The market pays you based on your skill, your knowledge, your ability to apply it, period.
One of the things that came as another great eye-opener for me was that your most valuable financial asset is your earning ability. It's your ability to go into the market and earn money. Now, what does it consist of? It's your ability to get results that people will pay you for. And it's an appreciating asset. In other words, you're getting more and more valuable through self-development, or it's a depreciating asset. You're becoming less valuable. The great majority of people are becoming less valuable.
Yeah, as they get older, they depreciate in value as opposed to appreciate in value.
And the thing is that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. People think, well, I'm just doing the same thing. Yes, but because of rapid obsolescence, you're actually getting worse if you're not improving.
That's a tough one, everybody.
You know,
yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it's a hard one to swallow and look in the mirror and say, that makes so much sense. If I'm not getting better, I'm actually in a retroactive pattern.
Yes. The default setting on the human psyche is failure and underachievement. And the way that you override the default setting is with goals and personal management skills.
That give you purpose and meaning.
Purpose and meaning, and keep you working really at the top of your game all the time. Now, here's the great discovery: is when you have clear goals, it raises your self-esteem, improves your self-concept, gives you a better self-image, gives you more energy, makes you more optimistic and positive, releases endorphins in your brain, gives you a sense of exhilaration and joy. People working on goals are just happy all the time, and you talk about the law of attraction. They attract into their lives people who want a piece of that action. When you're using your time well, you're accomplishing a lot, you're achieving a lot, you feel like a winner. You feel valuable, and people around you esteem you and respect you, and your self-esteem goes up, and you have more energy, and you're more positive. In other words, it's a mental fitness program that you get onto by doing the things that enhance your life.
Love it. I mean, this is world-class stuff, everybody. So we've got positive purpose and direction. We've got positive personal management skills, so really using your time effectively so you're achieving more than you were ever before. What's number 3?
Well, number 3 is positive mental food. Remember, 95% of your attitude, thoughts, feelings, everything else are determined by the information you're taking in. There's 25 years of research at the University of Pennsylvania on learned optimism. And what they say is that it's the way you take in information and the way you interpret that information to yourself. If you go for a drive and you say, this is a beautiful day, it turns out to be a beautiful day and you're happy. If you say, boy, it's a lousy day, you're negative. It's the same day. It's just the way you interpret it. So what we say is, just as you would eat really healthy foods to be healthy and energetic, you take really healthy mental foods to be mentally healthy and energetic. So you listen to good audio programs. You don't drive around listening to junk on the radio. You read good books and articles, like The Answer. Or you listen to, you watch good videos, like these, which give you great ideas. And especially you have great conversations. You hang around with positive people. It is so important that at Harvard they discovered that as much as 95% of your emotions will be determined by your reference group, by the people with whom you associate most of the time. And that almost every major change in life comes when you stop hanging around with people going nowhere and start associating with people going somewhere, and your whole attitude toward life changes.
It's interesting you said that, because I just read a study where we need 3 positive reinforcements for every negative reinforcement neurologically.
Yes.
And the most successful people in the world have averaged 5 to 1. So 5 positive thoughts, 5 positive ideas, 5 positive surroundings versus 1 negative, in order to not just get the edge, but keep the edge on a significant basis.
And it's not by accident. Right. In other words, they deliberately make sure that their inputs are positive. Yeah. Just like if you're eating foods, you choose foods and you want to be really healthy, it's really simple. You have orange juice in the morning rather than crankcase oil, as I say, is you eat fruits and vegetables and good foods. In other words, you can choose your inputs, and your inputs then determine your whole life.
Nito Cubain, one of our colleagues, said many years ago, he says, the old adage was garbage in, garbage out. He says that's not true. He says garbage in, garbage rots. Right? And so if you put garbage in, it rots. It doesn't just stay in. I agree with that. I think the more that we read great books, go to events, meet with people, surround ourselves with an environment, that really makes the biggest difference, I know, for me.
I had never thought about that, but the research says that when you take in negative thoughts, the natural tendency is to mull. And that's the word they came up with, is they mull. And I equate it to putting hot water on tea leaves, and you let it sit and sit and sit. What happens is the water gets blacker and blacker and blacker. When you take in negative information, and sometimes it's childhood experiences, it's a bad marriage, it's a bad business experience, and you think about it all the time, your mood gets blacker and blacker, and it just blots out all possibility of success or happiness.
Yeah, just remember, the negative thoughts will deteriorate your entire life on an ongoing basis. Yeah. So what's the next P?
Well, the next one is positive health habits. And positive health habits, we know that today you can live longer and live better than any other time in human history. And there's study after study on the functioning of the brain. And you've read Brain Rules. And the #1 chapter in every one of these books is aerobic activity. Aerobic activity engorges your brain with freshly oxygenated blood and makes you bright, more positive. It releases endorphins in your body so that you're more positive and optimistic, you're more genial, you are a much more effective worker. And so we say exercise on a regular basis, especially aerobic exercise. You only need to do about half an hour a day, and you can get that on a treadmill or walking vigorously around the neighborhood. Others is to eat really good foods. I read this wonderful thing the other day, and it was talking about can you succeed with willpower? And the observation from the expert was, it's not so much willpower as won't power.
I love that.
Isn't that great? It's won't power. I won't smoke that cigarette. I won't drink that Coke. I won't do this. So you need won't power to.
That's worth the price of admission right there, everybody. I'm going to borrow that from Brian.
Take it away. Take it away, because it is a great observation.
Won't power.
Won't power. Yeah, I won't do that. I won't spend time wasting. I will not eat bad foods. I will not sit and watch television for endless hours. I just won't do this. My favorite admonition in time management is just say no. And what you do is you just say no to any demand in your life that is not consistent with what you want.
So start with no as your default for anything that won't move you towards your goal.
Yeah. I had a gentleman come up to me at a seminar recently, a really nice guy. He said, I went to your seminar about 3 or 4 years ago. I bought your programs, listened to your programs. He said, and they transformed my life. I set goals. I organized my life. I managed my time. I was making about $30,000 a year at that time. He said, now I'm making about $350,000 a year. He said, I just couldn't believe it. I said, well, that's wonderful. Congratulations. He said, well, I got a bit of a problem. I said, what is that? He said, well, most of my old friends really don't talk to me very much anymore, and I have no patience for them. They want to talk, or I became very impatient with them. And I said, is this hurting my personality? I said, no. I said, here's what's happened, is as you have accomplished more, you value yourself more. You value your time, because your time is your life. And so therefore, you don't want to waste it. If somebody comes along, they want to take a piece of your life and waste it shooting the breeze about the latest football game, you just don't have the patience for it. He said, I spend more time with my family now than I ever did. I said, of course, that's what you do. But when you work all the time, you work, and you don't, because you're accomplishing so much, you have no desire to waste your time. People who are going nowhere with their lives, I say, want company on the trip. And they want to sit down, chat with you, go for drinks, long lunches, and so on. They're going nowhere, and it comforts them to be able to be around people who are also going nowhere.
I also think, though, people who are going somewhere love great company because you can do it faster, you can have more fun as well. Yeah. But I love that. People who are going nowhere want company. That is amazing. So we got, in addition to the first two, we have positive mental foods, positive mental habits, and then something you and I have talked about a lot, all right, is number 5. And
positive self-talk.
Self-talk.
It's 95% of your emotions are determined by the way you talk to yourself. And you can control the way you talk to yourself. But here's what I've discovered, is that if you do not deliberately talk to yourself in a positive way, you automatically talk in a negative way. If you're not thinking about what you want and where you're going, you start to think about your problems and your aches and your pains and your worries and what might happen and so on. Is that the default setting is always negative self-talk. So 95% of your emotions are determined by how you talk to yourself. So what I teach people is this. I say,
that's great.
Yeah, bottom line is just get up in the morning and say, I like myself. I like myself. And I teach people, get up in the morning and say, I like myself and I love my work. I like myself. I love my work. I learned this from W. Clement Stone. He said, every morning get up and say, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I feel terrific. And if you ever ask me, night or day, if I was crawling out from a car wreck with my leg left in the wreck, and you said, how you feel? I'd say terrific. I always say terrific. And people say, well, what if you don't feel terrific? I said, well, tell the truth in advance.
So, truth it forward.
Talk the way you want to be. How are things going? Things are going great. What about the recession? We decided not to participate. And so
can somebody learn that?
Yes.
So I know I had to teach myself that. I came from parents who were very, very negative.
Yes.
And everything was negative.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that. And I was taught what you just said in 1980. All right, so 30 some odd years ago, I was taught that it's my choice.
Yes.
And up until then in my life, I had no idea that it was really, really, really my choice. And then I practiced it, and things got better, and I practiced it some more, and things got better. Yes. And I can honestly say that, you know, probably 90% of my thoughts are positive most of the time. Yeah. And 10% maybe, you know, this or that. And then I quickly learned how to switch over.
I say if you hit 80%, you're doing great. Because there are a lot of challenges in the world. There's a lot of difficult people, there's a lot of difficult economic situations, so it's not, you know, you're not Pollyanna's happy, happy, happy all the time. You have a realistic approach toward life, and you realize there are challenges, but in the main, 80–90% of the time, you keep your mind on what you want. My wife, and your wife probably does the same thing. We'll be talking about something in the office or something in our business, and I'll go, rah, 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 rah. And she'll say, do you want more of that in your life? I'll say, absolutely not. Then stop talking about it. Because whatever you talk about, you're attracting more of it into your life. So just stop talking.
We need reminders too. My wife does the same thing.
Yeah. Because it's so important. So positive self-talk. Now here's some of the things that you can say. And I'll teach my whole 1,000-person audience. Is get up in the morning and say, I like myself. When you think about going to work, say, I love my work. If somebody asks you, what do you feel about your work? I love my work. Now why is that? It's because every successful person, without exception, who is doing really well, loves what they do. Most self-made millionaires, by the way, become a self-made millionaire when they finally start doing something that's not even work. They say, once I found the right thing, I never worked a day in my life.
I agree with that. You know, I'm just thinking on behalf of the audience there. For those who are watching saying, I don't love my work. As a matter of fact, I hate going to work. What do you tell them?
Yeah. Then what you say, here's a great, comes from Stanford University. Imagine that you got 2 pieces of news. Is that you had just won $20 million, tax-free, and deposited in your bank account. But second of all, your doctor has come back with a final test. You only have 10 years left to live. Now, this is a fabulous way of thinking. Imagine you have $20 million. In other words, you have all the money you want or need, and you only have 10 years left to live. What would you choose to do? What would you choose to do with your life? Let's say, just for the sake of the exercise, you have to work at something, but you can work at whatever you want. So you look around you, what would you love to work at? And then what you do is you say, I'm going to find something that I really enjoy doing. And you may have to kiss a lot of horny toads before you meet the handsome prince. Most people have to try lots of different things before they find the one that really suits them. There's a company in New York.
So what you're saying as well, those, if you don't love your job or your business, don't do it.
Yeah.
Find what you do love so you can wake up every morning saying, I love my job, or I love my business, or I love.
Yeah. And
So switch.
it's
Make
your-
the decision. Goes back to what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Make the decision, then back it up with action.
One of the greatest responsibilities you have as an adult is to find the job that's ideally suited for you. And the job that's suited for you gives you energy. You love it. You can hardly wait to get there. You think about it when you're not there. It makes you happy when you're doing it. And here's another test, is you just want to get better and better at it. You're just never satisfied. And you admire other people who are good at it. And you admire them and you want to get better. And so when you find that constellation of events, it's sort of like coming home.
It's funny you say I've got a big ear-to-ear smile because
Yeah.
I'm in that space again in my career right now.
Yeah.
Where I'm going deep into the neuroscience field, and I don't know lots of stuff, but I'm reading and I'm talking and I'm researching and I'm late at night and early in the morning and I'm loving it. And there's parts of me that feels insecure that I don't know enough, and other parts of me that says, okay, I'm learning a little bit of time. Why is it taking so long? But I'm making inroads. But that's
You know that all successful people are impatient. They want to do it faster. If they weren't impatient, they'd go and work for wages. Now look at our friends. We have friends, every one of our friends around us started with nothing. Started on farms, started with no money, struggled for a long time until they finally hit their niche. And all of them are happy all the time, and they're making enormous amounts of money. They can't even believe how much they're making, and we can't. Because once you start doing what you're doing, everything starts to work for you.
Love that. I hope you really got that. You know, the positive self-talk is so critical. You know, the other thing that you and I have talked about on many occasions is positive mental visions, or seeing yourself. That I believe is number 6, right?
Yes.
And I'm cheating, by the way. I've got a little document right over here to keep me on track. So number 6 is the positive mental image, seeing
Yes.
what you want. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, well, this is the basis of the work you did in The Secret. And what it says is that you will see it when you believe it. It'll come into your reality when you believe it comes into your reality. Now, one of the things I've done in visualization is you find, and this is a skill that you need to learn. Everybody thinks, oh, these are good ideas, I'll go and do them. You haven't got a chance in hell. If you have not mastered these skills now, there's no way you can do it by yourself. You've got to have guidance. So just like Julia Childs learning how to cook under the tutelage of French chefs for years. But there's 4 parts of visualization. The first is vividness, is the clarity with which you can see what you want to have. And the second is duration. How long can you hold that picture in your mind? And the third part is intensity, is the amount of emotions with which you imbue your vision. And the fourth part is frequency, is how often do you do it? Now these 4, I learned this from a guru. He said visualization is good. He said, but if you don't understand the 4 parts of it, you can never make it work. It's like trying to drive on ice and just kind of skitter all the time. And so what you find is that if you have a really clear, vivid, exciting impression of something that you want, it comes into your life. Mm-hmm. Now, I got to tell you a quick story.
I love the way he gets so excited. Isn't that great?
And it's a story that transformed my life. As I began to learn and practice these materials, I got a job. I had a dream to work for this large company, and the chairman of the company called me up cold and asked me if I would like to become his personal assistant. He owned 200 companies, and he wanted to use me as his personal go-to guy to go into these companies, to set them up, and he would guide me and tutelate. It would change my whole life. And so I said yes. And he offered to pay me whatever I thought was reasonable. He's a very tough bargainer. So I was making good money, working hard. And I met this guy, and this guy was younger than me, and he was driving a 450 SEL silver gray Mercedes-Benz with blue leather upholstery. I remember I was driving an old Volvo, and I parked next to him, and I looked at that car, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. That was the most beautiful car. 450 SEL Mercedes. It was a beautiful, beautiful machine. And I looked at that car and said, I am going to have one of those someday. I want that car. I was nowhere near capable of affording it. But in less than 18 months, basically the car fell into my hands. I could tell you the story, it's beyond belief, and I drove away. I drove home with the car, and my wife said, "Oh my God, what have you done?" I thought my car was even better than my boss's, and my boss is worth $800 million. He was driving a Cadillac. I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz. Anyway, so I'm driving a beautiful car, and the car, you step on the gas, and that just car moves like a speedboat, picking up speed, driving down the road. And so I'm happy as can be driving this car, feeling wonderful. Every time I get into it, I look at that and I think, my dreams have been fulfilled. Then one day, I took it for servicing, and went back to pick it up. And the guy's name was Mario. I still remember. He was a Mercedes-Benz trained mechanic. And he said, we found that the car had been serviced poorly last time, and they had put a valve in incorrectly in the carburetor, and we found it because we were just having trouble with the gas. I thought it was working fine. He said, no, it's really not been operating the way it should. So we changed the valve. We turned the valve around, and now it's working much better. I said, great. He said, go softly on the gas pedal because the valve is now working correctly. So I got in the car, and I was in his automobile dealership parking lot, and I was facing the exit, which was about 75, 80 feet away onto the street. I got in the car, I turned on the ignition, when normally I'd step on the gas and the car would start to pick up speed. And I stepped on the gas and that car went like that. And literally, I was in the road, like the road runner. I mean, beep, wham. And I had to slam on the brakes to stop from going into the street and hitting another car. And my heart was pounding. And I backed up and I said, what happened? He said, well, you may have thought that you were getting the full potential out of your car, but there was one valve missing. And this is the case with you. It's the case with everybody. You can have one valve, one idea, one belief, one concept, one childhood experience, very often buried, that is deep down in your psyche, and it's causing you think you're doing well. But what you could probably be doing, like with that car, I got 3 speeding tickets in the next week. If I just got in that car and touched the gas, it would just go blam, almost like a racetrack. And sometimes just by changing one of those valves in your mind, you can actually transform your appearance. That's why you see people who go double, triple, quadruple their income in a year. What happened? One valve was changed. One way of thinking was changed, and their whole life was different.
That is a brilliant story. I love that. It's that little hinge that will swing that big door.
And that's why you're so excited about neuroscience, because in neuroscience, what you do is you find the valve. That's right. You find the critical thing. It's just like a doctor will do all kinds of tests and finally find this is the problem, fix the problem, and the whole body's healthy again.
I love that. Yeah. And that leads me to your point number 7.
Which is a positive mental attitude.
Positive mental attitude.
You know, Napoleon Hill became the foremost success writer in history, and the one thing that anybody remembers about Napoleon Hill is he said the key to success is a positive mental attitude. So the question is, what is a positive mental attitude? And it's not happy, happy, Pollyanna. A positive mental attitude, the best definition I've ever heard, is a constructive response to stress.
A constructive response to stress.
Yeah. So in other words, you are surrounded by stressors all the time, frustrations, difficulties, and everything else. The great majority of people respond angrily, they blame, they wave their fingers at people, they get depressed, they shout, they do all kinds of things. But what do top people do is they respond constructively. If they have a setback or a problem, they say, what can I learn from this that will help me? What's the valuable lesson here? If they're having problems with people, they say, well, what is it in me that might be causing this problem? So they're always thinking constructively. And the wonderful thing, as soon as you start thinking constructively, your mind goes positive again. And you are in control of your emotions, and you feel happy, you feel powerful, you feel in control. So if you look at really successful people, and I've worked with billionaires who have been facing major crises. I've worked with them as a personal consultant. And what I found is they all go calm when they face a crisis. They take a deep breath and they say, well, let's look at this carefully. And they ask questions, and they think, how can we turn this to our advantage, or how can we minimize the damage? So instead of getting upset, they think constructively, and that's what a positive mental attitude. Of course, it's speaking positively and being happy and looking for the good and everything else, but it's basically responding constructively to everything that happens in your life.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting, I learned many years ago that we either have positive, constructive thoughts and ideas and attitudes, or negative, destructive concepts, ideas.
And if you don't choose the one, the automatic default setting is negative. The default setting is to think of the negative. We did a study at University of Pennsylvania, they interviewed 350,000 people like you and I, salespeople, entrepreneurs, business people like yourself. And they asked them, what do you think about most of the time? And they interviewed them, they called them every week for 6, 12, 18 months to find out what they were thinking about. And you know what the top 10% of people, like yourself, think about most of the time? They think about what they want and how to get it.
Mm.
That's all they're thinking about is what they want and how to get it. And thinking about what you want makes you happy and more creative. And thinking about how to get it activates your imagination, causes you to create visual images. It activates your intelligence. It gives you feedback. So what is it that negative people think about? They think about what they don't want and who's to blame. And that just basically summarizes a degree in psychology. Is almost all unhappy people are thinking about things they don't want, usually things that happened in the past that they can't change, and they're thinking about who's to blame. And those two things make them negative. And if they do anything repeatedly over and over again, you develop a habit. And pretty soon, people get into the stinking thinking habit. And no matter what happens, they think, who did it? Who's to blame?
Right. You know, I'm thinking about an individual right now who I know is involved in negative thinking, negative emotions, negative behaviors, day in and day out and day in and day out, and they wonder why their life is so miserable.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking, you know, if you're out there thinking about why your life may not be where you want it to be right now, first and foremost, no blame, no shame, no guilt of yourself and others, but then ask yourself, can you take these 7 points, all right, and can you start to apply them in your life? Because, I mean, the pearls of wisdom that you've shared are just incredible.
Well, what I have found is that you can't do it by yourself. The greatest success principle is learn from the experts. If you learn from an expert, like you wanted to learn how to fix your car, you wouldn't just go and open the hood and start taking things apart. If you want to learn how to cook, you wouldn't just start throwing things in a bowl. And what an expert can do, myself or John, myself especially, for the sake of this discussion, is in 2.5 days, I can take you through a proven process that 1 million people have been through in 27 languages, and you come out the other end a totally different person for the rest of your life. You know, we are always asked this question, what happens next? People go through our seminar and they say, well, what's the next stage? And we say, there is no next stage. You've got it. All you have to do is take this and use it. It's like giving a person a brand new Maserati and the keys, teaching them how to drive it. They say, what's the next step? The next step is go. And you never need to come back. And that's why I speak to people who've been through my program 10, 20 years ago, and they're still going. That's all that they really needed. But you can't do it by yourself. And that's the great challenge.
So I've got one other question I'm going to ask on your behalf that's watching right now. And what is the most important lessons that you've learned about the achievement of success in health, happiness, and prosperity?
Well, what changed my life was going back to the law of cause and effect. What changed my life is that you can learn anything you need to learn to achieve any goal you can set for yourself. I was struggling in sales. I was living in a rooming house. I was broke with holes in my shoes. And somebody said, you can learn how to sell well. I said, you can? They just told me go out and call on people. I didn't know there was a such thing as sales training. And I began to listen to audio programs and read books and go to seminars, and my sales went up 10 times. I was just, like I touched a hot electrical wire. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And I took people off the street. One of my best friends was in jail. I got him out of jail, and I taught him how to sell. Today, he's a multi-millionaire, owns 12 companies. He said the turning point in his life came when he learned how to sell. And so you can learn anything you need to learn. And your life is precious. So don't try to figure it all out for yourself. Is learn from the experts, and it'll save you 5 or 10 years, or maybe even a lifetime of struggle. One of the gentlemen I've talked to you about on the phone runs a $1 billion company. He said the one thing people say is, why didn't I learn this 20 years ago? How come I didn't know this early in my career? I would have changed my whole life. So that's the most important thing for me. You just imagine, money-making skills are all learnable. Everybody who was good at making money at one time was poor at making money and probably lost their shirt. And so therefore, if you want to make a lot of money, good, learn how to make a lot of money. It's just a skill. If you can ride a bicycle, I say, if you can drive a car, you can learn any skill.
And so what I'm hearing you say is you can acquire the knowledge, the instruction, the specialized knowledge, and learn to apply it to get a predictable transformation or result.
Yes, and this is not a lecture. What we try to do is, what you and I try to do is, it's experiential. Is we actually teach people so that they own the skills.
Right.
And once you own the skill, you walk away. Once you can ride a bicycle, you ride a bicycle for the rest of your life. It's sort of like the old thing, catch a person a fish they can eat for a day, teach them to fish they can eat for a lifetime. And so that's what you need to do. You need to learn to fish. And if you don't learn to fish, then you're probably going to be starving for a lifetime.
Starving or waiting for somebody to feed you. Listen, friends, I can listen to Brian for days and weeks on end, and he's just brilliant. And so, number one, Brian, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And for those of you out there, this is John Assaraf and Brian Tracy saying thank you so much.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for going to the community and giving people a little bit of encouragement. And before we get into this week's daily inner size, which is all around mastering your money focus, not managing, but mastering your money focus, I want you to remember that once you complete this level, you've got so many amazing bonuses that are going to unlock in the $1 Million Success Training Library. And that is your big reward for completing this 12-level program. I wish I could just jump into the camera and come and just give you a big hug or a high five, just to let you know how proud we all are of you here, our entire NeuroGym team, how proud I am, how proud Mark Waldman is, because you've invested time with us. Yes, you've invested your money with us, and thank you for that, but you've invested your life and your time with us. And so I want to just congratulate you for investing in you and making your life and the life of your family and community and humanity's lives better, because you are becoming better. And so thank you so very much, because this is what it takes to really achieve success in your life. And to be very, very transparent, this is just the beginning, right? We've been together for 90 days, 120 days, maybe 5 months, whatever the time is. Well, this is just the beginning. You've got your foundation, really laid out well. And so I want you to also take a look at any of the other programs that we have. If you have a business, we have phenomenal programs for business owners. If you have fears that you want to overcome, or you want to release weight and keep it off, we have other programs that you can check out as well. So I want you to know that we're committed to a better you and a better world, and we really want you to make sure that you take as much time to go through your program, to do your daily brain retraining, and to upgrade your knowledge and skills so that you have more confidence and more certainty than ever before. All right, so again, thank you so very much, and just continue with your program and continue doing this and communicate with me and the other members in our community. And you know what? Here's a double, boom, high five to you.